This is everything you need to know about Project Motor Racing, having played it for 20 hours. So firstly, this is a very tyre sensitive game. If you don't like having to warm up your tyres and then stopping your tyres from overheating, do not buy this game because tyre management is at the core of it. Also, if you like tyre management, they've been changing the way tyre management works multiple times since launch in terms of defaulting tyre warmers and the rate that the tyres overheat. So if you like tyre management, this is also going to be quite a frustrating game because if you work out how to drive the game, they may well change it. Now, if you don't like doing car setups or fiddling with your force feedback, do not buy this game. This game is very sensitive to setup changes and it has per car force feedback. So if you want to jump in the car and drive it, there's a good chance that the setup and force feedback will not be very good. If you spend 10 hours fixing it and fiddling it, it might be good. But if you don't want to do that, don't buy this game. Now, if you like casually racing AI in single player, this game can be pretty good. There's a good selection of cars. Some of them sound really good. There's a good selection of tracks as well. The race weekend mode is pretty simple to use and you can get multi-class going. So that's pretty nice. If you want to race ranked racing online like iRacing, I would not recommend this game at the moment because there's too few people playing online and there's too many ranked events, which means the lobbies are not populated, which is very frustrating. If you have a good network of mates and or you want to race socially, I actually would recommend this game because the social lobbies are quite easy to set up and it has a really good vibe when you're in a lobby, especially if you're doing multi-class online. However, you can't join lobbies that are already in session even if they're in practice, but that wouldn't be a problem if you're just racing with your mates. Now, don't buy this game if you dislike overhyped marketing. The marketing for this game was really over the top, saying the AI was going to be incredible, the career mode was going to have real depth. That's just not the case. And this is unfortunately continued post-launch, even for example on Reddit, where really weirdly there have been threads trying to tell me to stop being critical of the game, and when people have posted saying, no, Kira should be critical, those posts have been deleted by moderators, but racist comments have been left showing. And then the threads have been locked, so no one can comment against the racist comments, which is kind of weird. So there's very weird vibes going on with this game around the marketing and post-launch PR. Now, if you like GT3 racing, this game could be for you because there's a really good selection of GT3 cars, McLarens and Ferraris aside, but bear in mind you will need to tweak them and tune them. Even for someone like myself who jumps into a load of iRacing GT3s and just drives them on the default setup, in Project Motor Racing I am changing every setup before I drive. That's quite tedious. So a good selection of GT3s, they sound good, but you need to tweak them. And the same goes for the hypercars, but it's even more important. The hypercars have an even bigger variability in the driving. Some of the hypercars have been described as undrivable. I would say since one of the more recent patches, the Alpine hypercar, which was a very drivable car for me previously, is now basically undrivable on those stock settings. So again, you will need to take time tweaking the settings. If you're a fan of modding, this game could be for you because there's an integrated mod hub. There's question marks about this because it seems to be that certain features that the developers haven't coded in the game, they're expecting modders to do. For example, radar, etc. might come through a hub. And yes, there's no radar in the game currently. If you like single player racing games and you want something fun after work where you're kind of carving through the field, it doesn't seem like Project Motor Racing is going to be for you. The essence of the AI is that it's very aggressive and it wants to rejoin the racing line as soon as possible, even if you're overtaking a car, and that means that you're going to be getting ahead of them on the racing line. That seems to be in the DNA of Project Motor Racing, so if you like carving through the field, this might not be the game for you. Now, if you want a really in-depth single player career mode, even though this game promised it, I really don't think it's going to be for you because ultimately the career mode is very bare bones. There is some kind of element of having sponsorship and having racing expenses, but it's very bare bones. You can't change the difficulty in between championship rounds. It's also a little bit simplified in terms of you actually choose where you're going to be based and what events you're going to be racing in. There isn't any narrative, there isn't any storyline. It's very much you have to invent it in your head, but given the races are so static and not very dynamic, some of the races can feel very boring. Here's a top tip for you. If you don't want to be doing super long races in career mode, there is actually a way to do a multiplier to turn the races down to 0.5 length. If you're a single player endurance racer and you want to do really long events, this game may not be for you because there is no way to actually save mid-save in these really long races. You have to commit to doing the whole race in kind of one setting or just having it paused. For something that wants to do really long endurance races by having a IMSA sponsorship and an IMSA car on the cover, I think this is a pretty big letdown and it's something they should be adding. Equally, if you want to do long endurance races with your friends in real life, this is not the game for you because there are no driver swaps in the game. So unlike iRacing that has the big global endurance events where you have driver swaps, 24-hour races, and Le Mans Ultimate, which has just started doing 24-hour races, this is not going to be a competitor to that because it doesn't have the structure for doing big driver swap online races. If you want to drive the Mazda MX-5, I would say this game is not the best game for you because iRacing has a much better Mazda MX-5. For some reason, Rennsport has an MX-5 which is very boring to drive. I think the Mazda MX-5 in Project Motor Racing is also very safe and pretty boring to drive, whereas the Mazda MX-5 in iRacing is the most difficult and challenging and I think rewarding to drive. If you want to drive historic race cars, the legends of Group C and the NGT and all these kind of things, this could be the game for you because there is a very loyal and authentic selection of these old school racing cars. Now you can get these cars also in games like AMS2, but Project Motor Racing is a little bit newer, a little bit friendlier, and also most importantly on console. So if you're a console racer and you want to drive these historic cars, it's a much better experience in my perspective of driving these cars on Project Motor Racing than on something like Gran Turismo on PlayStation or Forza on Xbox. That's because the cars sound really good, but they also handle in a very fun way. I actually have a theory that the newer GT3 and IMSA cars were added relatively late to the game and they've had less development, so it is actually the historic cars which are the best cars in Project Motor Racing. If you bought, by the way, Gran Turismo 7 at launch in 2022 or Forza Motorsport at launch in 2023, I think it could be a good deal getting Project Motor Racing at a bit of a discount because it's just going to keep it a little bit refreshed for you. And Gran Turismo 7 right now does feel a bit stale before Spec 3 and the Power Pack coming in, and Forza Motorsport feels a little bit dead. So Project Motor Racing could be a nice shot in the arm for you if you're still after a fresh racing fix, having bought those games at launch. And yes, I think Project Motor Racing would be best described as a simcade. I think it would be best described as going head to head with Gran Turismo and Forza rather than going head to head with Le Mans Ultimate and iRacing where it's just never going to win. If you put it head to head with Gran Turismo and Forza, it does offer a much deeper handling model in my experience and also better force feedback, and they are cross-play across all three platforms, which Gran Turismo and Forza can't compete with. Now if you want basic quality of life features like a radar or like tooltips in the setup menu that show you what changing different sliders will do, you don't get it in Project Motor Racing. Project Motor Racing for some reason assumes quite a high level of sophistication with the racing players. It assumes that we can drive without radars. I don't think this is the case. It's not a VR supported game, so you can't easily glance at your mirrors, and also the setup pages are very complicated. It's not clear what happens if you go lower or higher on some of the sliders because the naming is a bit arbitrary and they haven't included tooltips, and I think that shows you what Project Motor Racing expects of you. It's not willing to hold your hand, and I think that hurts Project Motor Racing in many areas because quite a few of the complicated gameplay mechanics are not simple to understand for an expert like myself. For example, it doesn't tell you anywhere in the game that it's going to be very sensitive to tyre temperatures. That's very different to Gran Turismo, Forza, and even iRacing these days, where I don't really worry too much about tyre temperatures and I don't even have a tyre temperature graphic to look at. So to conclude, I'm going to give you a list of games where I think if you like it, you might enjoy Project Motor Racing. That list of games includes Gran Turismo, Forza Motorsport, Rennsport, and to an extent, ACC. However, if you're a big iRacing fan or Le Mans Ultimate, you're probably going to find this game just too frustrating and just not worth getting involved in when you've already got a great experience on those two platforms. That's my very honest review of Project Motor Racing. Leave me a like and a comment if you agree, and I'll see you next time.